So that's a proposition for the debate to resume on the 16th of July. Is that proposition seconded? Yes. Any member wish to speak? Those members in favour kindly show. Those members against, sorry, I should ask.
So does it go to a proposition, sir, normally? I'm not sure.
Well, the states decide, so that's how the Assembly has decided in this instance. But I think that's a clear indication of support for your proposition, Deputy. And so the debate on the regulations will be listed to resume for the 16th of July. The next item of public business is the Draft Income Support Law and Regulations Jersey Amendment Regulations 2000 P25 of 2024, lodged by the Minister for Social Security and for which the main respondent is the Chair of the Health and Social Security Scrutiny Panel. And I ask the greffier to read the citation.
Draft Income Support Law and Regulations Jersey Amendment Regulations 2000. The states make these regulations under Articles 5, 4, 5, 7 and 18 of the Income Support Jersey Law 2007.
Minister.
Thank you, sir. I am pleased to be able to bring these regulations to the Assembly today, not least of all because it is the first time I am doing so as Minister for Social Security. This legislation represents the final stage of a long-running project, but also, importantly, a step towards breaking down barriers so that people have a more realistic choice about where they receive their care. This government is committed to supporting people that need care to be able to stay in their own home as long as possible in order that they can be closer to their family, friends and the wider community. If approved, these regulations will update income support legislation to introduce a new ancillary home care costs component, which will be available to anyone with an income support claim who is receiving care via the long-term care scheme. This new component will provide support for both older islanders and young adults. For example, a young person receiving long-term care who continues to live in the family home and who is able to make an income support claim in their own right will be eligible for the new component. In addition, the new component will increase the total value of income support available to eligible households. In some cases, where household income is just on the cusp of income support, this may mean that the household starts to receive income support for the first time. This additional support will initially help over 260 families with a payment of £30 per week to assist with the extra costs they face because of care being provided at home. This could be for things like higher utility costs for using their water and heating more, replacing damaged or worn clothing, or purchasing specialist consumables. Most people who receive a care package in their own home will also be supported by informal family carers. I would like to express my gratitude and appreciation to these carers who fulfil a vital role within our community. This new benefit runs alongside the support that is already available to informal carers and is designed to provide some extra weekly household budget to meet the extra domestic costs which these households often face. I would like to thank the previous Ministers for Social Security, the then Deputy Martin and more recently Deputy Miller, who started and progressed this important project, and the families that engaged with my officers to give them a better understanding of the cost pressures faced by families delivering care at home. Sir, if the Assembly agrees to adopt these proposals, over 260 families will immediately see the benefit of extra money in their household budget, a little over £1,500 over the course of a year. And the new component will, of course, be available to anyone who is receiving income support that requires long-term care in the future. This is a good start in extending support to people that require care and their carers, and I am confident that this additional support will make a meaningful difference and assist with additional costs that these households face. As an income support component, it will be adjusted in line with other components when they are increased. And I am also committed to ensuring that the benefit be reviewed to ensure that it is having the impact I hope it will have. I would be glad to answer any questions that members may have, and I propose the principles.
Are the principles seconded? Yes, Deputy Miles.
Thank you, sir. First of all, I'd like to declare that I have a conflict in that a close family member is part of the legacy cohort mentioned in the penultimate paragraph of page 4 of the Minister's report, although he will not benefit financially by this amendment at this time. Whilst I applaud the Minister for developing this extra benefit, which will support people already in receipt of long-term care, I do not believe that this goes anywhere near addressing the needs and covering the costs of young people transitioning from school at the age of 18 and moving from children's services into adult services. Currently, a person claiming income support who is assessed as eligible to receive the impairment component has an extra £190 per week. If a person chooses to access long-term care, that impairment component moves to the long-term care budget and their income reduces accordingly to £130 per week. If that person is living in the family home, cared for by parents who cannot be preferred providers of care, none of that long-term care budget comes back to the household unless it is purchased from a care provider and delivered outside of the home. And also, a person living in the family home is not entitled to a rental component of income support. So this benefit will increase household budget by only £30.03 per week, but that will leave some families £160 short of what they're accustomed to receiving, when nothing has changed in the household circumstances except that the child is no longer at school. On page 4 of the report, the Minister refers to 2 legacy cohorts who are subject to slightly different funding arrangements. It states that separate arrangements will be established via order, and I'm confused by this call currently because that is the Health Minister's budget, and he has just told us in response to my oral question that he assumes this to be the case, but he doesn't know, and he is not aware of any consultation that took place. So whilst I'm grateful that this will allegedly be available and there will be no additional cost to those groups, it raises the question about how the new people coming through the system are going to access a short break service outside of the home. Long-term care is a choice, but there won't be much of a choice if a person transitions from school to a short break service. Either the parents will have to pay or opt for long-term care, instantly losing £160 per week as part of the transition to long-term care, being replaced with this benefit of £30.03. I would also be interested to hear more about the consultation process. I note in the report that the Minister refers to field work. In preparation for this debate, I've met with officers from Social Security and Health who confirmed that there'd been no consultation with interested charities, Autism Jersey, MenCap or Enable. And I've also pointed out that there was no public consultation and that my family and other families who are in a similar situation had not been given the opportunity to comment. This is because the list given to officers at Social Security comprised only those cases at adult social services who are open to social services, i.e. those that have a social worker. Many adult children in this bracket do not have a social worker, and we are one of those families, and therefore we were not able to contribute to the consultation or the field work of this proposition. So I find myself between a rock and a hard place. My family circumstances won't change, which is very positive, providing the commitment given by the Minister is honoured by the Minister for Health and Community Services. And I hope we'll continue to fund in the same way until such a time as our family member is able to move out of the home into a package that will cost the States of Jersey in excess of 120k per year, considerably more than the component which will be lost. But for the other groups, I fear that transitioning out of school will make them much worse off. and individual needs may not be met appropriately. In particular, I'm concerned that they may feel pressurised to move into care before they're ready. I'd also be interested to know whether the Minister has received any advice about discrimination issues. If you have two adults with similar needs being met with differing amounts of cash benefit and a different model of care, I'm not sure how this creation of a two-tier system can be equitable. I would like an undertaking from the Minister that she might speak to some of the families that will be affected adversely by the transition from income support to long-term care on these benefits. And as a further question, student grants. Regulations require that funds received from long-term care are included in the calculation for awarding a grant to a student. Will this additional benefit also be included in student grant awards? And if so, does the Minister think that is fair? And finally, sir, as I said, I feel caught between a rock and a hard place. I want to support this proposition for people who are receiving long-term care and an element of income support. It will increase their budget. But there will be unintended consequences to others who will be adversely affected by this change of regulations and future policy. The £30, as I've said, will provide benefit to many families, but not all. In view of my conflict, and because I am caught between a rock and a hard place, I think I am going to be abstaining from this vote today. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Deputy. Deputy Catherine Curtis.
Thank you, sir. The number of interesting points there raised by the previous speaker, and I'm sure the Minister will hopefully be able to answer those. I've actually been involved in this project myself, and I do know of quite a lot of contact with families. So having spent some time myself as a carer for my father at home in his last weeks, and having met many unpaid carers while doing community work, it's been a priority of mine to improve the lot of unpaid carers. So last year I drafted a proposition for more financial support for carers. But then I withdrew that proposition because I learned that there was already work underway on this matter, and that is the work that's led to this amendment today. I would like to thank the previous Social Security Minister, Deputy Miller, and the present Minister, Deputy Felton, who have met with me, who were happy for me to meet with the officer leading this project numerous times, including with leaders of care organisations, including with other deputies. I know Deputy Barbara Ward, who was also keen to see more support for carers. I applaud these ministers for being open with backbenchers and working with them. I also appreciate the time given to me by the carers I have met and the caring organisations. It's good to see in this amendment some recognition of the cost involved in caring for someone at home. Without unpaid carers, our social care system would collapse. Unpaid carers should be recognised for the invaluable contribution to society that they make. While caring for a family member may be a fulfilling experience, carers still need support, and this amendment will assist those carers most in need. I would like to see carer well-being always kept central to any plans around social care and health policy, and I see this amendment as a step in the right direction and will be happy to support it.
Thank you, Deputy. Deputy Ferry.
Thank you, sir. And I support these regulations as this project has been a long time in the gestation, and it is good to see it finally coming to fruition. When Deputy Miller and I, when she was Social Security Minister, met with carers groups, they always highlighted a desire for more financial support and expressed a need to provide targeted support for the additional costs that are associated with being a carer, and the additional costs that both the cared for person and their families face. And this is why I'm keen that this matter progresses. The component is aimed at providing additional financial support associated with care being delivered at home and the extra cost of things like utilities, consumables, clothing and other items, including wear and tear. This new component fulfils that financial need, as it will provide £30 and 3p per week in additional support for around 265 families or individuals who are in receipt of income support and receiving their care from the long-term care scheme. I'm also glad that once implemented, this new benefit will be reviewed after 2 years to ensure that it is meeting its brief. It's good to see a recognition that the overall aim of this legislation is to remove the potential financial barrier to the delivery of long-term care packages in the home and demonstrate support for the important role played by informal carers. The addition of this new component will increase the total value of income support available to eligible households. In some cases, where household income is just on the cusp of the income support eligibility, the new component may mean that the household starts to receive income support for the first time. As the Minister said in her speech, it's important to note that there are some young adults who have income support claims in their own right and are living at home, receiving long-term care. So it is not just for income support households. These young adults might be living with parents who don't receive income support. So we're widening the scope of the benefit. If the aim of enabling more people to stay at home longer is achieved, it is hoped that we will see, in time, a reduction in spend from the long-term care fund. Residential packages are more expensive than domiciliary care, on average approximately £15,000 per year more. If the scheme results in 1 in 5 low-income families maintaining a home care package for an extra 6 months before needing to move to a care home setting, the savings to the long-term care scheme in terms of care costs would be around £375,000 in that same period, which would be a significant contribution towards covering the cost of this new component. This change in legislation is supported by existing government plan funding of £550,000. So, sir, for all these reasons, I will be supporting these regulations. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Deputy. Does any other member to speak on these regulations? I call upon the Minister to reply. Minister.
Thank you, sir. I'd like to firstly thank Deputy Mars for raising her concerns about a subject that I know is very close to her heart, and I would be more than happy to meet with the Deputy to discuss her concerns and also how we can make further improvements to the services available and income support and care packages as we move forward. During her speech, the Deputy did mention the consultation process. I'm aware that consultation happened over an extraordinarily long period of time, partly due to COVID. The reason why I do know that is I was an officer working at CLS and received the reports from the officer that was undertaking the consultation. The reason that it was elongated during COVID is because the officer took a lot of time to go and meet with people in their homes, and unfortunately that wasn't able to happen during that time. And also, as Deputy Ferre mentioned, previous ministers had done consultation with the organisations involved. So I've come along to this as minister fairly late in the piece, but I'm very happy to bring these regulations, and I was happy when I took office that they were in the place they were in, so I could bring them today and make a real difference to people. I'd like to make the point again to Deputy Miles's points that this is just a step in the right direction. It's not the final solution. There's lots of work that we can continue to do as government. And the question around the legacy cohort and the care costs currently being paid by HCS, it's my understanding that they will be paid by LTC into the future, and that my officers are working with officers in health to look at how that's going to be administered into the future. Thank you to Deputy Curtis as well. I know, again, this is something that is dear to Deputy Curtis, and she does a lot of work in relation to support for carers. And I hope to continue to work with Deputy Curtis, Deputy Mars, Deputy Ward I'm looking at as well, and members across the Assembly, so that we can really continue to improve the offering to families who are caring for their loved ones. I think that's all I've got to say. So, Sir, I maintain the principles and call for the appel.
Deputy Miles, do you have a point you wanted to raise?
I just wanted to raise, sir, in my speech, I did ask the Minister to consider whether she'd had any advice over the discriminatory aspects of this legislation.
Do you want to respond to that?
Sir, it's my understanding that the Deputy met with my officers late last week. I got advised of that meeting, I think it was on Thursday, and it was the intention to get further advice on some of the issues that she had raised, but officers didn't raise anything of specific concern in line with the regulations being proposed today.
Thank you. The appel has been called for. Members are now voting on the principles. Members are invited to return to their seats. I ask the greffier to open the voting. If all members have now cast their votes, I ask the greffier to close the voting. And the principles have been adopted. 40 votes pour, no votes contre, and 2 abstentions.
Those members abstaining, Deputies War and Miles.
Deputy Renouf, does the Health and Social Security panel wish to scrutinise this matter? In the absence of Deputy Dubé, I'm asking you.
No, sir.
Very much. Minister, how do you wish to propose the regulations?
On block, please.
Are the regulations seconded?
Yes, sir.
Does any member wish to speak on the regulations in second reading? Those in favour of adopting the regulations kindly show. Thank you very much. Regulations are adopted in second reading. Minister, do you wish to propose the matter in third reading?
Yes, sir.
And are the regulations as adopted proposed, seconded?
Yes, sir.
Does anyone wish to speak in third reading? Those in favour of adopting the regulations kindly show. Thank you very much. The regulations are adopted in third reading. The next item is the States of Jersey Development Company, new Articles of Association, P26, lodged by the Minister for Treasury and Resources. The main respondent is the Chair of the Corporate Services Scrutiny Panel. I ask the greffier to read the proposition.
The States are asked to decide whether they are of opinion to approve the new Articles of Association of the States of Jersey Development Company Limited, SOJDC, as set out in the attached appendix.
Minister.
Thank you, sir. Until the process of updating them began, the articles of some of our state-owned entities dated back some 18 years, and SOJDC's current articles are approximately 14 years old. In that period, corporate governance standards have improved. The UK Corporate Governance Code was published in 2018, and our own Jersey Companies Law has been amended to reflect best practice standards and modern ways of working. It was for this reason that, after the implementation of the new Memoranda of Understanding with the wholly owned SOEs, work began on drafting and agreeing new Articles of Association with these entities. The benefits are obvious in terms of ensuring consistency of approach between the state-owned entities, as well as being aligned with modern governance standards. New articles of Jersey Post, Jersey Telecom, Ports of Jersey and Andium have already been adopted, but the current articles of SOJDC require changes to be approved by the Assembly, hence the reason for bringing this proposition. I'm grateful to the Corporate Services Scrutiny Panel for their comments, which indicate broadly their support for the proposition, and I'm also grateful for the time in scrutinising these new articles. I have submitted, admittedly on yesterday in timescales, a comments paper of my own responding to the panel, which I hope has been sufficient in addressing the areas where the panel raised questions. If I can assist further in my summing up, I will do so. Sir, in concluding, I would draw members' attention to the report, my comments responding to scrutiny, and the fact that the articles of a company are simply no more than the internal rulebook for how a company and its board operates and the relationships between shareholders and between directors. Policy matters, a company's objectives and strategic aims are dealt with separately in, for example, the Memorandum of Understanding, ministerial policies and indeed decisions of this Assembly. Sir, I make the proposition. Thank you.
Thank you, Minister. Is the proposition seconded?
Yes, sir.
Does any member wish to speak on the proposition? Deputy Miles.
Thank you, sir. And I rise to speak as Chair of the Services. Sorry. I speak in my capacity as the Chair of the Corporate Services Scrutiny Panel. I'm just going to talk very briefly for members that haven't read the comments paper, and I thank the Minister for providing her comments very late, due to us, not due to the Minister. The panel scrutinised the proposed new articles of association for both Andium Homes and the States of Jersey Development Company. And the Minister for Treasury and Resources acknowledged within her report that the new articles of association reflect substantive similarities to those of Andium. So on that basis, the panel compared the new articles for Andium with those proposed for the States of Jersey Development Company, and also cross-referenced them with provisions within the relevant Memorandum of Understanding. From an observation perspective, we want to highlight, with reference to the observation made within our comments regarding Article 5, that on further reflection we understand that to be a contradiction that has been resolved with the updated Memorandum of Understanding, and thus paragraph 14 of the panel's comments should be disregarded. And this has been confirmed by the Minister. It's the panel's view that fundamentally the proposals intend to modernise the governance frameworks across the state-owned entities, and we've observed that the new articles of association are in a standard format, which appears to be the approach followed to achieve consistency across the state-owned entities. We did observe, however, that because the standard format had been used and the articles of association had not been tailored to each company's specific operational environment, objectives and needs, that in practical terms, propositions in the proposed new articles association for the SOJDC are effectively redundant. Nonetheless, the panel does not consider the proposed new articles to be inappropriate, and it's our view that the Memorandum of Understanding is more important for ensuring that companies' provisions are adequately positioned for clarity and proper governance. The panel highlighted some areas of concern, and I thank the Minister for the clarity regarding those articles in particular. We were particularly concerned that the article around remuneration of directors and officers, where the provisions were maybe not clear. The Minister confirms in her comments that the States of Jersey Development Company is obliged by the Memorandum of Understanding to comply with the principles of the 2018 UK Corporate Governance Code regarding remuneration. The panel highlighted further concerns relating to the issuance, alteration and repurchase of shares, including the specific circumstances under which shares are issued, how the actions will be managed to ensure that they align with the strategic objectives and public interest. And I'm again grateful to the Minister for confirming that although the panel's observation is valid, that no unissued shares are present and all issued shares are ultimately held by the States of Jersey. The Minister confirms that the issuing of any additional shares would only be possible by special resolution, which would be a shareholder decision,
and the Minister confirms that she is satisfied that the MOU has sufficient controls and the power to direct for proper governance. So the panel is appreciative of the clarity received from the Minister for Treasury and Resources in respect of concerns raised within their comments paper, and taking the Minister's comments into consideration, the panel is supportive of the proposition, particularly as the Minister confirms she is satisfied that the MOU from the States of Jersey Development Company has the appropriate controls for proper governance of the entity. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Deputy. Does any other member wish to speak on the proposition? Deputy Gardner.
Thank you, sir. And it's grateful for the chair of the scrutiny panel for raising various concerns. And I would like to address, it is connected to, we have now Gulf Association, will have MOU in place. Would the Minister in her closing speech advise if she has plans to do a strategic review to satisfy herself that SOJDC meeting objectives set by the government and the States Assembly in 2011. This review has been suggested 5 years ago and it hasn't been taking place.
Thank you, Deputy. I call upon the Minister. Minister, you want to?
Yes, sir. I'm not sure really what more I can add. I'm possibly.
Is your speech and reply, or you wanted to say something else?
Deputy Gardner's comment.
But is this your speech and reply? Because I need to make sure
yes, my summing up.
Right, so no one else wants to speak.
Sorry.
In that case, I call upon. I thought you wanted to ask for a point of clarification, but if no one else wants to speak, then I call upon you to reply, Minister.
I do apologise. I was assuming that nobody else wanted to speak, and I was being preemptive. So I do apologise. I suppose the thing I would really like to emphasise in summing up is that I've looked at countless articles in my career, and there is really generally no more boring document than a set of articles. They are just really how a company operates. And it's very easy to look at a document like a set of articles and assume there is some nefarious purpose, and there is none. This is simply about ensuring that the company operates effectively, that it has answers to what it does in terms of giving notices of minutes, notices of meetings, how resolutions are passed. There are, in fact, I think I would actually just challenge the suggestion that some articles are redundant, because there are, in fact, two shareholders, because the shares are held by two entities on my behalf as nominees. But in the end, it's really neither here nor there whether the articles suggest meetings of multiple members. This is just what articles look like, and there really is no ulterior motive other than trying to get a consistent position. I believe all the articles we asked legal advisors for a modern standard set of company articles. There was some degree of tailoring for some of them, some of the entities, the state-owned entities. So there may be some differences between them, but really they are. The place to set objectives is not within articles. Articles can only be enforced, I believe, among shareholders themselves. So really it is. The articles are not the place to get concerned about. I don't think the directors would be insane enough to try and give themselves a massive pay rise without consent, nor would they be insane. It is inconceivable that the directors would issue shares in the context of a state-owned company. It's simply, to my mind, inconceivable that a board of directors would issue shares to a third party without consent. So I really just would emphasise there is nothing unusual in this document, other than the fact that it's state-owned companies that are at issue. As regards, we have said we will be reviewing the Memorandum of Understanding later this year. It was adopted in 2022. I think our view is that those would be reviewed every 3 years, so we will start a review later on this year. And I have to, I thought Deputy Gardner said that there hadn't been a strategic review since 2011, in which case I then have to share some of the frustration of the Sustainable Economic Development Minister this morning, that if it hasn't happened since 2011. But we will continue to look. When we had the new chair, I said I would meet with her. We will continue to look at what States of Jersey Development Company are doing, how they do it, and to make sure that they are delivering what we want them to do. So, sir, I make the proposition. Thank you.
Those in favour of adopting the proposition kindly show. Appel has been called for. Members are invited to return to their seats. I ask the greffier to open the voting. All members have the opportunity of casting their votes. And I ask the greffier to close the voting. I can announce that the proposition has been adopted unanimously, 45 votes for. The next item is the draft Social Security Jersey Amendment Regulations lodged by the Minister for Social Security. The main respondent is the Chair of the Health and Social Security Scrutiny Panel. I ask the greffier to read the citation.
Draft Social Security Law Jersey Amendment Regulations 2000. The states make these regulations under Articles 50 and 51 of the Social Security Jersey Law 1974.
Minister.
Thank you, sir. I'm pleased to be bringing this today. As other members, I'm sure, will be aware, I am a fan of increasing efficiency and effectiveness within the public sector. As the background to the explanatory notes to these amending regulations explain, the law was drafted at a time when an application process was an inevitability. So improvements in technology, data collection, and the recent movement of the administration and collection of the contributions element of Social Security to Revenue Jersey mean that this is no longer the case. Instead, the statutory requirements for applications now pose an unnecessary obstacle to islanders, particularly at times when they may be dealing with new caring responsibilities, bereavement, loss of work or income. It can't be right that the law says where a person is entitled to help and where we are aware of it, officers are prevented from acting until unnecessary administrative processes are completed. These regulations simply remove the blanket requirement in the law for an application to be completed. I will then be able to make the changes required to the relevant ministerial orders to allow me to introduce practical improvements for islanders. Sir, I move the principles.
Are the principles seconded? Yes, sir. Does any member wish to speak on the principles? Okay, so those in favour of adopting the principles kindly show. Thank you very much. The principles are adopted. Deputy Breniff, does the Health and Social Security Scrutiny Panel wish to scrutinise this matter?
It does not, sir. Sorry.
Thank you very much. Minister, how do you wish to propose the regulations?
En bloc, please.
Are the regulations seconded?
Yes, sir.
Does anyone wish to speak on the regulations? Those in favour of adopting the regulations kindly show. Thank you very much. The regulations are adopted in second reading. Minister, do you wish to propose the regulations as adopted in third reading?
Yes, sir.
Are the regulations seconded in third reading? Does any member wish to speak on the regulations as adopted? Those in favour of the regulations. That has been called for. I invite members to return to their seats. I invite the greffier to open the voting. If all members have the chance of casting their votes, I ask the greffier to close the voting. I can announce that the regulations have been adopted unanimously in third reading, 43 votes for. The next item is Youth Service Statutory Revision, P28, lodged by Deputy Kovac, and the main respondent is the Minister for Children and Families. Deputy Kovac, there is an amendment to your proposition from the Minister. Do you accept the amendment? Are members content with the proposition to be read as amended? Thank you. I invite the greffier to read the proposition as amended.
The States are asked to decide whether they are of opinion to request the Minister for Children and Families to undertake an evaluation with input from, but not limited to, young people, the youth service and parishes, to consider the benefits and disbenefits of making the youth service a statutory service under the Minister or his successor in title, and enshrined in the Education Jersey Law 1999 or other legislation as appropriate, and to take the necessary steps to ensure that the results of the evaluation inform any proposals put forward for consideration by the Assembly by the end of March 2026.
Is that the accurate way of reading the proposition, greffier? Because the Minister's amended document has a few additional words at the end. If you look at his amendment, you stop reading.
So I believe if required with the two extra words that should be at the end of that
Additional
sentence.
words. Yes. Yes. That's fine, yes. Yes, the greffier will read the proposition as amended again.
The States are asked to decide whether they are of opinion to request the Minister for Children and Families to undertake an evaluation with input from, but not limited to, young people, the youth service and parishes, to consider the benefits and disbenefits of making the youth service a statutory service under the Minister or his successor in title, and enshrined in the Education Jersey Law 1999 or other legislation as appropriate, and to take the necessary steps to ensure that the results of the evaluation are brought back to the Assembly by the end of March 2026, with the funding of any actions identified for implementation to be included in the 2027 government plan if required.
Deputy Kovac.
Sir, before we start, I wonder if I could just declare that I sit on the committee of St One's Youth Club. I don't believe it's a direct financial interest, but I'd like it on the record, please.
Thank you very much. Deputy Miles.
Likewise, I sit on the committee of St Brellard's Youth Project.
Thank you very much. Any more declarations? Deputy Gardner.
I'm sitting as ex officio of Otla Pukale and First Tower Youth Project.
Thank you very much.
And likewise, I sit on the committee of St Peter's Youth Club.
I sit on the
One
committee
at a
of
time. Will we all get your chance?
I sit on the committee of Mo4 Youth Project.
And sir, I sit on the Gory Youth Club committee.
I'm on the St Brellard's Youth Project committee, sir.
Any other declarations? Deputy Kovac.
And I'll start saying I'm also sitting on the Mofont Youth Centre committee. Thank you, sir. I want to express my gratitude to the Minister and Assistant Minister for Children and Families for reconsidering their position since our initial discussion on this proposal and for collaborating with the greffier and me to reach a compromise on the wording of the amendment. This demonstrates that we all have the best interest of the youth service at heart, and it is beneficial to identify any potential negative outcomes early on to prevent uncertainty. My proposal aims to make the Jersey Youth Service a legal requirement to ensure its continuity despite changes in government priorities that could come. It seeks to protect existing youth services and their funding without altering ownership or the current network of youth clubs in the parishes. The youth service in Jersey is highly valuable, also empowering young people through different initiatives like the Jersey Youth Parliament, Jersey Youth Assembly, Multilingual Learners Program, the Youth Inquiry Service, and others. The statistics outlined in their annual review of 2023 demonstrate considerable dedication, achievement, and commitment of staff, translating to positive engagement of the island's young people in various imaginative ways, giving the broader life experiences during a formative time. Over 3,300 young people benefited from these services in 2023, and there were over 52,000 project sessions attended. This essential work has proven to be effective in guiding young people away from troubles, in some cases preventing the need for more complex services to be involved in the future. The National Youth Agency collaborated with the UK government to make youth services mandatory for all local authorities. This agency pointed out that youth services had been shut down in the UK to save money, and some local authorities and decision makers did not consider youth clubs and other services valuable enough. We cannot know that this could not also happen in Jersey at any point in the future. Therefore, providing legal protection for these services can effectively safeguard against such an outcome. The Children and Young People Plan 2019 to 2023 outlined 4 outcomes. All children in Jersey should grow up safely, learn and achieve, live healthy lives, and be valued and involved. Making the youth service a legal requirement aligns with these outcomes and provides structure and safe spaces for children and young people. Chapter 13 of the Independent Jersey Care Inquiry report recommends the introduction of legislation to protect vulnerable children and young people, saying, "The principle of paramountcy of the child's welfare is long established in children's legislation, and lip service seems to be given to this by the states of Jersey. If the failings of the past are to be avoided, it is essential that these matters are given a preeminent position in the legislative process to ensure that the interests, safety, and well-being of children have the most modern legislative backing." On contacting briefly the Children's Commissioner's Office regarding this proposal, they responded that although not having the time to consider in detail my proposition, as a matter of principle, the Office is supportive of measures to further incorporate the rights of children into Jersey law. Such actions are in line with the general measures of implementation of the United Nations Convention on the Rights of the Child, as set out in Article 4, and contribute to the progressive realization of children's rights on the island. Next, I want to briefly answer the questions raised by the Minister in the comments paper from my proposition perspective, to highlight it's not as complex as it is made to look. What are the benefits of the youth service becoming a statutory service? It will protect its future existence in law, better safeguarding the service and its budget. What are the disadvantages of the youth service becoming a statutory service? At this point, and in the format I have proposed, I don't see any harm that could occur, but the acceptance of evaluation would clear any doubt about it. What will this mean in practice? In practice, there doesn't need to be any changes, and in law, the change can be as simple as referencing the existence of the legislation, or as complex as the Minister desires. However, my proposition is intended to protect the future of the youth service by mentioning its necessity in the law without creating a separate body, unless that is the intention of the Minister. What will statutory status seek to protect that is of value? The existence of this valuable service and funding for it in the future, no matter how priorities of different coming governments would change in this matter. What impact will there be on funding with this proposition? Unless decided by the Minister and expanding on services, it shouldn't change, and its current funding system and the valuable contribution that parishes and the existing charities also bring to the service should remain the same. Will this change the relationship between the youth service and the parishes if the service is statutory? The fact that the Minister in charge of directing the wording of such law is accountable as well, doing a great job for the youth service in his parish, can also give reassurance to the parishes that the best interest of their parish youth services would be kept in mind when drafting the wording of such law. Are there any examples of a transition to a statutory service that can be understood from both the UK and other jurisdictions? I want to clarify again that I'm asking for statutory service and not statutory body, which, except the mention in law, shouldn't require anything else change in practice, unless the Minister wishes so. Therefore, the transition should be just at policy level. Will the outcome the youth service is trying to achieve for young people and the wider community change should the youth service become a statutory service? There's no requirement to change the service's current plans, as just the requirement of its existence in law should not change its existing activity. What do current funders and stakeholders think about any potential changes? I have spoken with a few representatives of the youth services in different parishes, and I'm also a committee member, as mentioned, of the Mofon Youth Centre, and shared my proposition with them. Everyone that I have spoken about it with from the service are seeing it as a positive action, welcome the protection of its future in law, and they're happy with the system it currently operates in. How do we involve children and young people in any consultation on their service? The statistics referred to from the Jersey Youth Service Annual Report 2023 showed the large volume of users and high interest of our youngsters attending these services. Once the scoping document for the evaluation is ready, a plan can be made to ask the children and young people attending relevant questions on this. So from my point of view, it shouldn't be a very extensive exercise to have this evaluation done. Sir, I have agreed to the amendment that also requests an evaluation of any potential unintended consequences before any changes in the law are made, as neither of us would want to cause harm in any way inadvertently. It also reassures me that as a trustee of the Monfont Youth Centre, I will be involved in this evaluation process and be kept informed of its progress. However, as explained, I fail to see how the proposition I presented could negatively impact in its current format. Additionally, I hope that we can receive the evaluation results sooner than the allocated time, as realistically the evaluation should take much less time than stated. Therefore, once the evaluation is completed, I expect the proposition to be brought into law before the end of our political term, if the outcome demonstrates that it won't harm the Jersey Youth Service or if the benefits outweigh any potential negative impact, which could be easily addressed to safeguard it. These services play a critical role in guiding young people and providing them with essential support and opportunities. It is imperative for this Assembly to acknowledge the importance of the Jersey Youth Service and to continue supporting and protecting their future in every possible way. Sir, I now make the proposition. Thank you.
Thank you, Deputy. Is the proposition seconded? Yes. Does any member speak on the proposition? Deputy Ferry.
Thank you, sir. Firstly, I welcome this proposition by Deputy Kovac, as it provides a focus on our island's youth service, which, as the Deputy highlights in her proposition, and I quote, is a hidden gem. Also, thank you to the Deputy for accepting our amendment to her original proposition, as it demonstrates that ultimately we all want what is best for our Jersey youth service. So, Jersey has a youth service that is outstanding and over many years has developed and grown, and some recent celebrations of the service have been that we launched the new youth work curriculum earlier this year. In 2024, the service has worked with 35% of the island's 10 to 16-year-olds. The service has got a development of an on-island apprenticeship scheme to develop and grow local youth workers. And working in partnership with Skills Jersey, we provide programmes to support young people who are not in education, employment or training. We also have the development of a new multilingual youth project, and recently we have 9 students who are studying towards their degree in youth work from Wrexham University on placement within our youth service locally. So the list could go on, but my point is that our island youth service is the envy of many local authorities in the UK, as unfortunately in the UK many youth services and youth centres have closed due to funding cuts. This is not the case here in Jersey. We continue to invest in our youth service so that it provides the correct level to meet the needs of our children and our young people between the ages of 8 and 15. Also, the offer that the youth service delivers, such as engaging young people in positive activities, creates savings in other areas, such as policing and criminal justice. Preventing young people from engaging in negative activities and keeping our youth offending low is important for us as a society. While delivering this speech, I would like to take this opportunity to thank the 12 parishes and their connotabs for the investment that they make towards the local youth clubs. Parish partnerships started back in 1996, with the first being the parish of St Peter, and the funds are important to support the employment of youth workers based in the relevant parishes. I know from the conversations within the youth service leadership team that relationships with the parishes is not just about money. It is also about access to parish buildings, the parish youth club, providing a safe space for children and young people to meet with their friends, and encouraging young people to be part of parish events, and provide a voice for young people at parish level is extremely important. It is for all these reasons that the Minister for Children and Families and the Council of Ministers advise fellow Assembly members to be cautious when considering Deputy Kovac's proposition, and I thank again the Deputy for accepting the amendment to her proposition. On an initial review and a brief assessment of the proposition, it may appear, if adopted, to be a force for good to strengthen the service further. However, a note of care should be exercised to ensure that the adoption of the proposition does not lead to unintended consequences for the youth service, which have yet to be considered or appreciated. It is therefore proposed through this amendment to the original proposition that an evaluation is carried out to the efficacy of Deputy Kovac's proposition to fully understand the implications of placing the youth service on a statutory footing and answer the many questions within the amendment paper. And I know that the Deputy has already attempted to answer some of those questions in her opening speech, but the evaluation would provide time and space for consultation to take place with key stakeholders, such as parishes, youth project charity committees and young people, to have a voice and for the staff engagement to be undertaken so that all parties can look at the advantages and disadvantages of the proposal. But I've already asked SIPES officers to start to prepare an evaluation scoping document, and within the amendment I've highlighted various points that they must consider as part of that work. SIPES officers and I will take the necessary steps to ensure that the results of the evaluation inform any proposals put forward to consideration by this Assembly before the end of March 2026, and the funding of any actions identified for implementation will be included in the 2027 Government Plan if required. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Deputy. Does any other host speak on the proposition? Deputy Stephens.
Thank you, sir. I just want to take a couple of moments to just really pay tribute and I suppose echo the words of both the members that have spoken already about the Jersey Youth Service and the people who work within it and support it. The youth service has a very special place in my heart. It's the reason that I ended up in Jersey. I was 6 years old when we moved to the island so that my mum could become a youth worker at Liscay Youth Club, and she went on to become the island's principal youth worker. So I grew up in youth clubs in the UK and then in Jersey as well, and saw as a child and then as an adult kept a keen interest in all the very good work that goes on there. And I think this really is an opportunity for us as an assembly to just pay tribute to that. As I think Deputy Kovac said in her opening, the youth service really does do invaluable work. And I note that Deputy Ferry called it a hidden gem. And I sometimes wonder why it's hidden. I don't really know the answer to that, but I think it's an interesting thing to reflect on, because it is celebrated, but also I think it does have its benefits to just be allowed to continue with its work and tap into young people, because actually if we want to know about what's going on with young people in our community, youth workers are the first people that I would be going to speak to. So really that's the main gist of what I'd like to say. I'd like to just point out that as we go forward and we consider the role of the youth service in a statutory point of view, but also when there are projects that link to the youth service, I'd like us to bear in mind just not forget it really as that hidden gem. And I give you an example of the skate park and the opening of the Lekeneve skate park, because there was a really excellent project there to provide it first opened. And that youth worker did some really excellent work around the park and engaging young people, which I'm absolutely convinced will have helped to not only reduce any instances of antisocial behaviour in that area, but actually to engage and make important links with young people who otherwise probably wouldn't have interacted in that way. Unfortunately, that funding was temporary and it came through Jersey Sport, I believe, at the time. And a bid was previously made to make that a permanent role, and I believe that didn't happen. And once again, I think the project's been allowed to continue or able to continue thanks to some charity funding. So it is still in place. But I share that as an example because I think that when we're looking at building something like a skate park, it's not just an infrastructure project where you build a skate park and then walk away from it. We have maintenance costs, and actually I think we should be looking at how we utilise support services around projects like that as well. And I'd say that building in, a part-time youth worker post that can help to support in those areas and use skate parks as a base to interact with our young people should be considered as part of ongoing maintenance and running costs, to be quite honest. My final point would just be to congratulate the government on some really excellent use of language in their amendment, because they have done very well to avoid the use of the word review and use evaluation instead.
Thank you, Deputy. Deputy Brennan.
Yes, sir. Only a few short comments, but I can't offer the same breadth and depth of experience as Deputy Stevenson, but I would echo her point that the youth service is indeed a terrific thing for the island. And I think the thing that sits behind this proposition, and indeed the amendment to it, that's good, is that we clearly have a very strong consensus in the Assembly, certainly, and I would think in the island, for supporting the youth service. And as I think Deputy Ferre made clear, that is not the case in the UK, where these services get dropped quite quickly when under funding pressures. And I think we should be very pleased to note that we do have a functioning youth service here, albeit it could obviously always be improved. The point I would just make in terms of practical experience is that both my sons have used the youth service, but my sort of own personal engagement with them as a representative in St Brillard's has been in terms of talking about behaviours down at St Brillard's Bay, for example, antisocial behaviour and so on. And only yesterday, the parish deputies in St Brillard were all at a meeting of stakeholders down at the Bay that looked at this issue. And the youth workers were there. And I must say that their contributions to that discussion about what could be done to improve the situation in terms of safety and reducing antisocial behaviour at St Brillard's Bay were particularly on the money, because they had taken the trouble to go and speak to the kids in their care, if you like, before the meeting, and canvass their views about things that might work and things that hadn't, ideas that had come up on social media. And they were able to provide a very quick and dirty, but nevertheless valuable response to some of the suggestions that come through from people who may not have thought about it that deeply, but the people who were actually relevant, the kids, had been asked about that by the youth workers. So I think they stand as excellent advocates for the youth in the island, because they interact with them on such a good basis and such a strong basis. And I think their understanding of those issues is particularly good. And I think it's of huge help to members of the Assembly, such as myself, who try and engage with those issues. So I think it's really, as I say, my main point is I hope that we can sustain a consensus around the importance of the youth service and keeping it funded. And the statutory provision may go some way to cementing that.
Thank you, Deputy. Does any other speak on the proposition?
So just briefly to add to the comments made by the previous speaker, in terms of St Brillard, we do go back quite a long time, but we have the Communicare Centre, which originally was financed jointly 3 ways by the parish, the funding trust and the Education Committee of the day. I have to say, sir, that their funding came and went. And going back many years, I'm pleased to say that we're now in a position where there seems to be more stability from the government side. And it's one of those areas which is fundamental to what the parish offers in terms of supporting the youth community in the parish, in conjunction with the youth workers, who are an excellent crowd and really appreciated not only by the parish administration, but also, of course, the youth that they serve. It's something that the skate park that was mentioned earlier, we were pleased to endorse and support in terms of funding to the person deputed, should we say, to manage it, although I gather there's no permanence to that funding. So these are areas that we have to look to and see how that can be made, should we say, more long-term. So in answer, in terms of the proposition, it's not been made clear to me what the difference will be to the parishes, and maybe in her summing up, the deputy might enlighten us what her vision is for our involvement in that as time goes on, and what she envisages that we might be doing. Thank you, sir.
Peter.
Thank you, sir. Firstly, I'd like to thank Deputy Kovac for accepting the amendment to the proposition. I think the evaluation is a particularly important part of this proposition, in that there are those unintended consequences that we may find, and one of those that the Constable of St Brelade has alluded to, and I think it's particularly important in relation to my parish, which has the longest association with the youth service, is that relationship with the parishes and the funding that they provide, and also the work that they undertake, often not seen because it may not be financial, but that the parishes take with their various youth clubs and the encouragement they give them. So that's all I really want to say. I would ask members to support the proposition, and I thank Deputy Kovac once again. Thank you very much.
Does anyone ever speak on the proposition? Deputy Gardner.
Thank you, sir. First of all, I would like to congratulate and thank to Deputy Kovac to bringing this proposition forward, and also managing to work with the ministers to find a way forward for the amendment. I know it was challenging, and I'm in complete support of this proposition, as it's also my manifesto commitment that the youth service, who has the vital job in the community, will receive statutory recognition. Hidden gem. Actually, this word is first, and several people mentioned it, and I'm going back to the Senator Valois that brought the proposition to make youth service statutory at the previous term, but it was not enough time, and I hope this term we will progress. We spoke about the parishes, which play really important work. We spoke about the government, but we didn't speak about youth workers. The youth workers who do this work day in, day out, at night, and late evenings, in the mornings. When they've been called to support young person, they're always there. And I would like to thank for all youth workers for contributing their time and their passion to our young people. It's important to understand that youth workers, it's not just who meet these young people in the evening. They are now participating in multi-agency meeting, dealing with safeguard issues. They are part of the child integrated support team. They are part of the early help team. They are part of child and youth team. They are part of child protection and more. During my work as a deputy, because I'm involved with 2 youth projects, and also as the minister who had responsibility, I have had multiple conversations with youth workers, police, young people attending youth project, head teachers, children commission, and social workers. The simple feedback is, youth worker is a key person, partner, and has the best rapport with the children. When teachers and some adults, us as an adults, are not managing to connect and to understand, and they're not trusting, youth worker become this trusted adult and work for the children. All multi-agency work showed extremely great result, that the moment that it's they are connected to the youth service and work with the youth workers and other professionals, the youth offences dropped only from this engagement. And I had data. I will not bring data now, but it can be seen online. Regarding the amendment, I do believe that amendment is the way forward, and thank you for bringing the amendment and not rejecting the proposition. I would raise the question about 2 years to evaluate. 100% we need to engage with young people. But engagement with young people we've done not once and not twice, and young people telling us from the Youth Parliament and other forums that they need more of activities for young people on the island. Now, engagement with the youth service, and I'm grateful that now the Assistant Minister mentioned multilingual service. I'm not sure if Assistant Minister aware that the multilingual service, it was a debate in the Assembly as an amendment for the government plan that brought by myself, that won, but it was a debate. People were not sure, so we basically almost begged for 2 young people, 2 youth workers to work. Now it's the project and it's working. The same happened to the inclusion youth worker, that the amendment for £70,000 needs to be brought to the government plan because it wasn't almost impossible to get this funding. I'm sure that the Minister for Children and Family remembers the debates that were around the Council of Ministers table when we discussed extra 2.5 staff, which cost much less than anything that we discuss here for 5 projects on the island. Then the youth workers need to have a security that they will not need to continue to work second job, because with part-time job, they would need to do second job and not actually dedicate their time and be involved with everything that happened before. So I think that the youth service is pretty clear. And the skate park example was another example that we tried to get the funding. Funding was not available, and now charity is supporting, which is important. Why I'm bringing this? Because I believe we all of us as members of this States Assembly recognize and value youth service. Now, it's just the question how we value and how we make sure that they are secure. And regardless what's happening in the government, because we've seen when something happening with the government, the funds can be slashed. Regardless what's happening in the parish, because I'm sure that some parishes, I know actually that some parishes support it more than others. Some parishes put much more funds into the youth service than others. And I think that the parishes do amazing work, and without parishes we wouldn't have youth service, and we will need parishes. We cannot run youth service without parishes, but what we need for the youth service is the stability. And I really hope that the word evaluation, which will take 2 years, maybe it will be possible to do less than in 2 years to make sure that we actually secure statutory and we secure the funding within this term of government and not kick it down to 2027 when it will be next government and we don't know what will happen. And I would encourage the Minister and the Assistant Minister to consider if this evaluation does really need to take 2 years, or we do have, we can bring the time forward to ensure that one of the legacy of this Assembly, of this term, will be secured funding for the youth service. And I just would like to end that it's, as the Deputy Kovac mentioned, it's just to add this additional protection. And I do believe that parishes always will have a key role in the youth service, because the youth service are around the parish, around the community, and it's within the community. It's just to have this security for them. Thank you.
Thank you, Deputy. Does any other member speak on the proposition? If no other members speak, I call upon Deputy Kovacs to reply. Deputy Kovacs.
Thank you, sir, and thank you to everyone speaking in the debate for emphasizing once more the incredible value and work of these services and showing why we should do anything possible not to lose it. In short, the proposal is asking to acknowledge the significance of youth service and secure its future through legislative measures involving Parliament, rather than possibly getting involved in an ongoing future budget conflicts in the name of efficiency. All of us in this chamber have been involved with the youth service in some capacity, whether by participating in a youth project, being part of a parish youth project committee, supporting children and young people through a local youth club, or having children or grandchildren who are involved. I welcome Deputy Stevenson's suggestion on linking more the youth services with sports, as this can only be beneficial as well. I totally agree with Deputy Gardner that the value of these services won't be the same without the amazing youth workers and the passion of all the staff there putting the supportive in supporting the young children and developing these services. So thank you all. We know that there was also much earlier discussion of the possibility of establishing a statutory youth service even before Senator Valois brought hers, more specifically P48 in 1972, which was adopted, asking the committee to make provision in 1976 and succeeding years for the development of youth work, both statutory and voluntary, in its estimates of revenue and capital expenditure. And long-term, in drafting the proposed Consolidated Education Act for Jersey, the committee will consider incorporating statutory provision for a service to and for youth. Then in 1975, the Education Committee undertook some actions in response to the proposition, but a statutory service was not established. The Education Law 1999, as enacted in that year, was the law to consolidate and reform the law relating to education and appeared 27 years after this reference, still without the mention of a statutory provision for a service to and for youth. We can see that over time there have been several recommendations and even an old proposition passed to make the youth service a statutory provision, but is not in place yet. We have the clear precedent of these services being cut in the UK. We may argue we are not the UK and it won't happen here, but can we predict the future and what future governments would see as important services or not? Currently, the service functions on contracts signed for 3 years with each parish. What if at the end of a 3-year cycle a decision to just not sign another one comes? This clearly indicates the need to protect the future of youth through the law. This can be, as mentioned before, as simple as a reference phrase of existence in the law, or as complex as the minister wants to make the wording of it. Therefore, yes, by all means, have the clarifying evaluation to avoid any unintended consequences or find solutions for any occurring where possible. However, I would ask this to be done with a can-do attitude in mind and not delay it more than necessary. The significance of Jersey Youth Service work for our youth cannot be ignored, and we should take all necessary measures to ensure its continuation by making this service statutory. I now call for the appeal.
Thank you, Deputy. The appeal has been called for.
Sir, just before the appel, I was listening earlier, but I wasn't in the Assembly, and I just wanted to declare an interest insofar as I am also a member of the St Peter's Youth Club Committee. Thank you.
Thank you. The appeal has been called for. I invite members to return to their seats. I invite the greffier to open the voting. If all members have cast their votes, then I ask the greffier to close the voting. And the proposition has been adopted unanimously, 43 votes for. That concludes public business for this meeting. I invite the Chair of PPC to propose the arrangement of public business for future meetings. Conatar.
Thank you, sir. The next state sitting is listed for the 25th of June, and at the moment we have 8 items listed, which are Draft Statistics and Census Jersey Amendment Law P29-2024, Jersey Employment and Discrimination Tribunal Appointment of Members P30-2024, Cannabis Decriminalisation of Personal Possession and Recreational Use P31-2024, transfer of 2024 departmental underspend into the Stabilisation Fund, P35 2024, affordable and right-sized housing provision on the waterfront, P37 2024, fully funding educational training for all 16 to 18-year-olds, P38 2024. And we also have the deferred strategic reserve funds, P22 2024. As always, please keep the rest of the week free in case these days are needed as continuation days. And so I make the proposition.
Proposition seconded? Yes, sir. Amendments content to proceed as proposed by the Chair of PPC. In that case, the States are now adjourned until 9:30 on the 25th of June.